Hi, I'm so tired. You know, some of you guys online are just so angry all the time. When I was a Muslim, I was never angry about what people thought about my beliefs because I had the smug, you know, understanding that I had the truth. So I never had to be angry at people for getting it wrong or misrepresenting it. But some of you people who come and argue with me are so angry, it genuinely makes me feel like you're in so much doubt about your beliefs that that's how you are. Like you can't reconcile it with yourself, so you have to take that out on other people. I was never angry, and honestly, if you're angry about your beliefs, it's kind of a negative in your corner because it means that you don't have the conviction that you need to be having. Anyways,
I'm a little bit unholy, so so's everyone else.
what is today's video? I wanted to do an Ask Faye. There've been, first of all, they're quite easy for me to do, and I've been kind of really stressed out lately, so I think that I owe me one to do an easy video. And second of all, I've had a few DMs. Some good, some bad, but there have been users who have come to me and asked me questions, and I want to address them in this video. And I've done it twice before. Once with, sorry, my nose is like super itchy. Once before I addressed the fear of hell. Another time, I kind of remember what the other Ask Faye was about. But I think I generally cover quite large topics in videos, and sometimes I don't make enough room for smaller topics. And this is a smaller topic that I would like to talk about. And I collected some opinions from some of you. But let's go over the question. What is the question? Hey, shh, just shh. You talk too much. So the question is, what is the perfect time to leave Islam in order to avoid regret? Now, I would like to say that my worldview doesn't necessarily reflect everyone's worldview. I feel like it's extremely subjective. But in my opinion, from what I've gleaned and from my life experience, and this might be extremely depressing to hear, I believe that regret is more or less inevitable in life because of, it's something you have as an incentive to make good choices. Because you don't want to feel regret. No one wants to feel regret, but I do think that it's inevitable because when you come across difficult choices, because it's a difficult choice, it doesn't matter what choice you make, you'll always carry some kind of regret. And some of those regrets you leave behind, you get over and you leave behind. And other regrets are, harder to let go of. A simple example would be if you want to have ice cream one day, but your teeth are in really bad shape and your dentist told you not to have ice cream. You have ice cream that day, you're going to regret it because you'll fuck up your teeth. Or you don't have ice cream and you stick to your dentist's instructions, and you'll feel a sense of regret because you can't have ice cream. It's a small regret, but it's a small regret. It's a regret regardless, and then you let that go fairly easily. With me, one of the biggest regrets that I carry around is the fact that me leaving my father's house because he was abusive meant that I had to leave my siblings behind, and I carry that around with me daily. I'm not even going to hide that. That's something that I feel all the time because my siblings, and I've said this before, are, children that I consider to be my own. I considered them to be my own children because I practically raised them after my mother passed away. So that is a regret I carry around all the time, and I know I'm going to hear it in the comments, it's not your fault, I know it's not, but it is still something that I carry around, and I'm just using it as an example to further the topic. It's regret, in my opinion, is inevitable in life, and the goal of life is to die with few regrets. That's my goal in life anyway. You can have your own, but that's my goal, is to die with few regrets. And in terms of leaving Islam, because leaving Islam isn't easy, it's not easy anywhere, and it's more difficult in other countries, I don't want you to take this as advice because I don't know if I'm giving the correct advice for everybody. Obviously, if you were in a country where leaving Islam, it could potentially put you to death, I would advise that you don't do it publicly at all, because that would be a huge risk to your safety. Obviously, you have your own values, you live your own life. I cannot tell you what choices you make, but me personally, I would advise you not to come out publicly for fear, that you may lose your life. But in terms of my own experience and what I would advise for someone who was in my specific situation, me being a girl who lives in the UK, comes from a very conservative background. That's the only experience I've had, so that's the only real experience that I can give. And I think I've more or less put the groundwork in and said that you're going to have regrets regardless, because it's a difficult choice to leave Islam. And when you leave Islam, you don't really leave once. In my experience, I left twice. What do you mean, Faye? What I mean is that I left mentally once and I left physically once. So it's not just leaving, it's not just like one experience. It's a number of experiences, and it may take a long time to process all of that. I think that a lot of ex-Muslims go through a doubting phase, then they go through the mentally, like spiritually leaving phase, then they go through the practice phase, and then they finally leave. At least that's how I went through it. I didn't have much of a doubting period, but I certainly had like my closeted ex-Muslim experience. And I think that really speaks to how difficult people feel leaving Islam is. Even if, some Muslims might argue that it's not that difficult in the West, it still is difficult. It certainly isn't as difficult as it is in other countries. As we all know, there are about 11 to 13 countries that still have punishments for apostasy, public apostasy anyway, because they don't know your inner thoughts yet. But it's still difficult on a social and psychological level to leave religion, because Islam makes you feel so bad for leaving it. On a practical level, let's go the mental level first. Let's go over the fear. I've discussed. So one of the biggest things for me leaving Islam was that I was really scared of the threat of hellfire after I die, and that's something that will take time to get over. I've personally gotten over it right now. I've made a video on it in the past if you want to check that out. It's what if it's all real? I think that's what I called it. And in my personal opinion, I would rather burn in hell with people that are good people who I enjoyed and I was friends with, and I'd rather burn with those people if it is all real than be in heaven with a bunch of squares. For me, it's a no-brainer. But obviously I came to that conclusion over a lot of time. And I think that will take time for many of you as well. In terms of the other fears that you might have mentally, in terms of your family, in terms of your community, I think it's really, really important to evaluate within yourself how much you value your connections with your family, with your community, and, what the cost of leaving them would be. On a psychological level, we can go over the practical stuff later, but on a psychological level, like for example, me leaving Islam meant that I had to leave what were essentially my children behind, and that is still something that takes a huge mental toll on me, because, and I said this a few days ago, like I can't ever truly be happy, like ever, because I constantly feel like I'm enjoying something that I can't share with my own children. And that is definitely a mental cost that I had to consider when, going through all the reasons for leaving my father's home. And I definitely made the right choice. I am by no means saying that I made the wrong choice. I made the right choice. My siblings' lives have improved. My life has improved. It is just the emotional connection that I had with them that I no longer have, that takes a mental toll on me, if that makes sense. So I think that you need to process that. You need to write through that. You need to talk to people about that. You need to reconcile your feelings. And you have to be sure that this is what you want, because for many of us, there is no going back. There just isn't. I've resolved to just wait for them to grow up, and I won't watch them grow up, but just wait for them to grow up, and then come to me if that's what they want to do. in terms of the practical side, I left Islam in 2017, but I didn't come out as an ex-Muslim until so that was February of 2017, and I didn't come out as an ex-Muslim until October of 2018. And that was when I was fully out of my family completely. I was completely disowned, and that's when I decided to come out. And there's a very good reason for that, because many families resort to disowning, resort to violence, resort to verbal abuse, resort to all kinds of abuse. Some even resort to killing. And while I don't think my family would have been as bad as wanting to kill me, they definitely put a lot of abuse on me even before like my manifestations of me not being very religious anymore came through. Like, they were abusive about the fact that I reported my father for being abusive. You know, they were abusive about the fact that I left my siblings behind. They were abusive about the fact that I wouldn't get an arranged marriage, or I refused an arranged marriage rather, that they really desperately wanted me to be a part of. So I think that while it's a very difficult situation in many Muslim families, because many Muslim families are not progressive. I'm not saying most, I'm not saying, few, I'm saying many. In my experience, I went to an Islamic school. A lot of the experiences that I had at home, I could relate to with many of my classmates. So I think that that's why the double life, or the closeted ex-Muslim, has become a bit of a thing that I hear about a lot. And I was closeted for just over a year, coming up to 2 years really. But I was closeted, and I've done a couple of life hack videos on this channel for wearing the hijab, for knowing how to lie properly, and not just get caught frequently. I've done videos about arranged marriage and how to wiggle your way out of it, especially as a woman, because that's the experience that I can talk from. I think that you should stay in your double life until you are financially stable. And again, I know that sometimes that isn't achievable, because I know that there are Muslim families out there that won't let their daughters work at all, because they don't want them to have financial independence in the slightest. And my family was one of those families. Until I had left my father's home, I didn't have a bank account, I didn't have a valid passport, I never worked professionally a day in my life. It wasn't until I moved out of my dad's house and I moved into one of my more progressive uncle's houses that I was given those opportunities to create something of a living for myself, which then gave me the tools to leave and be independent. And even now, I'm still, if I'm being completely honest, I'm still struggling today, because I was never given those tools for how to manage my finances, for how to, properly save money and things. So that's still stuff that I'm figuring out. But I think a big priority for me was that I wanted to be financially stable, because once you have money in the bank, once you are consistently earning money, that opens the door for you to live independently, at least in the West. So that I would, on the practical side of things, I would put that right at the top of the list. And aside from that, I mean, having exceptionally good friends, I have exceptionally good friends. Alicia is one of my closest friends. She's nearest, dearest to me. She's like a sister to me. Her parents are like my parents. Having that is really important, in my opinion. Simon, who's in the background of all of my videos, I love this picture of him, even though he probably fucking hates it. He's one of my closest friends. He's like saw me through all of the abuse that I was going through in my father's house. I've made such close and wonderful friends that they're there to fill, while the gap that my family left can never truly be filled, at least for me, I don't think so. They're there to at least try to, and I think that I really appreciate that. And I think that it's really important to find people who can at least somewhat fill those gaps. I wanted to make a video about that as well, about having surrogate family members. And I just wanted to go through them individually because honestly, there's so many. Zara came into my life this year. She's a wonderful human being who's given me so many different tools for, you know, she's just wonderful. Like I don't even know what to say about that. Carl is another one of my friends whom you never see in videos because he's always the one taking the videos for Council of Ex-Muslims and like all the videos that came out of Amsterdam, the person who did all of Mimsy and Vido's event, all of those videos, he filmed those. He's one of my closest friends now. And I also met him just this year. Halima, Salat, I don't want to go into like all of it, but I think having close friends for at least moral support is really, really important on a mental and on a practical level. Because let's be real, if, something happened to me in my house today, like my house was burning down, I don't have a family to call and tell that because they won't, first and foremost, they won't give a fuck. And second of all, they're probably going to tell me that it's divine punishment. It's just good to have not necessarily backups, but just people who are going to be like, man, I'm really sorry that happened to you. Because we need that as human beings. We're social creatures. We need that. But how to leave Islam without, like, I don't have many regrets actually leaving the faith. Because it's a shit faith. I regret not leaving it sooner. Because I feel like all of that time was essentially wasted. I felt like that most of my life was a lie, and it was. I don't regret leaving the actual doctrine, because it's garbage. It's falsehood. It's just a bunch of lies that I was taught and I was made to believe, and I invested so much emotion, so much time, so much money, so much everything in, And if I had stuck to it any longer than I did, I don't know where I would have been or who I would have been. I don't know if I would have joined ISIS. I don't know if I would have been just a barefoot and pregnant housewife to a useless husband. I don't know if I would, be dead in a ditch. I don't know. But I certainly wouldn't be here, on my own, doing my own thing, having a voice, talking to you. I certainly wouldn't be here. So in terms of leaving the actual doctrine, I don't regret a thing about that. I enjoy my life so much more now. I experience life on a much higher level, and I'm able to appreciate things much more. Even the negative times that I have, like I have depression, I have anxiety, I have depression, I have PTSD, I have eating disorder, I have fucking everything. Even those things, I'm capable now of understanding those things on a much better level. I'm capable of taking my life in my own hands, taking responsibility for aspects of my life without needing to have the fail-safe of, oh, God will take care of it for me. No, fuck that. I'm gonna take care of it. It's made me a much kinder person. It's made me a much more tolerant person. It's made me a much more open-minded person leaving Islam. And I would recommend it to everyone. I mean, you do you. You can do whatever you want. I'm just making suggestions here. But my life, on the whole, has improved so much more since leaving. And the dark abyss that I was in before, I can't think of a worse place to be mentally than where I was before. Constantly living in fear, constantly having regrets, constantly needing to feel as though I was inadequate and needed to ask forgiveness for things. I can't think of a worse place to be mentally. So if you think that leaving the actual doctrine will cause you to have regret, that's not the part that you'll feel regretful about. The part that you'll feel regretful about is the outside, the external factors, your family, your community, what the religion drives people to do around you, the people who are supposed to love you, and the people you are supposed to trust and love and care for. Those are the things that will cause you to have regret, and those are the things that make this choice so difficult. The doctrine itself, it's an idea. It can't do anything. It's powerless until you give it power, and a lot of people do, and that's why it's so difficult to leave. But before I go, I would want to read out some I don't think they're testimonials. There's one question, one snide comment, and one proclamation, let's call it that. So from at Punjab Pagan or Pagan Punjabi, I'll add all the ats or the Twitter handles in post. He said, I gave your question some thought, and as far as I can tell, I don't have any regrets. I'm far more productive, have peace of mind, don't waste time on 5 prayers, which I used to do with passion, don't have to fast, don't have to waste time on evangelism, tabligh or da'wah. I used to be a misogynist, a homophobe, now I know better, so I don't see what's there to regret. And I honestly have to say, I agree. The question comes from Wajah Hassan, who I've answered questions from him before. I love him. Go and follow him. Go and check out his Twitter. His handle is at HassanWZ. He says, religion is a good social club. Do you miss socializing? I only miss cultural things. Like, I miss my cultural food mainly, and there's nothing really else that we took part of in terms of like arts, like dancing and music and film. But I do miss those things. In terms of like socializing with religious people, the kind of religious people that I used to socialize with were hyper religious, and all they wanted to talk about was religion. I mean, it was fun at the time, but I don't really miss them as much as like I miss members of my family that I had to leave behind. You know what I mean? I don't really miss that. I do wish that skeptic communities were better at like having things to do, like traditionally, culturally, having like some fun days. And I try to fill that gap. I try to bridge the gap. You know, I go to Comic-Con, I participate in Halloween, Christmas, like all of that stuff. And yeah, some of them are religious festivals, but I don't care. Like, I celebrated Eid this year with an inclusive mosque initiative, which was interesting. Wouldn't call it fun, but it was interesting. You know, I had some samosas, went to a Mela this year. I try to bridge the gap, but I do think that as skeptics and as a community of skeptics, we need to be better at, you know, socializing with each other and having social things to do. Right now, Topic Thunder and I, or Kelly, for those of you who are aware of her, are, you know, planning an event to hold next summer, and I would love to make that a regular thing. We have some really interesting things coming up in that regard. So, you know, follow me on Twitter for updates on that. And, you know, subscribe here. You'll hear about it here. Now, to address the snide comment, and I would like to have one for each video, but I don't always like writing them down. This is from Just a Pleb, or Plebe, because he spelled it with an E on the end. He said, Faye, you're a fake person with no understanding of Islam. I would wager that if I have no understanding of Islam, then neither do you, because many people practiced Islam in the same way that I did. Many people still do practice Islam in the same way that I did. Just because I don't understand why Muslims keep propagating this idea that Islam is like monolithic for everybody. Everybody practices Islam differently. And when I talk about Islam, I typically talk about my experience with it, like how I practiced it. And I came from a very, you know, conservative background. I came from Tabligh Jamaat or Deobandi, and then I moved into the Salafi movement, and then I left. So that's usually, like, I'm usually speaking from a very conservative point of view. And if you aren't from a conservative background, like you're from a progressive background, you're not going to get a lot of what I'm talking about. And a lot of what I'm talking about is not going to ring true for you, because you don't have that. But that's where I came from. Like, Yaqeen Institute really jumped down my throat because I called them Al Yaqeen, and they were like, you haven't read any of our articles. First of all, I have, and I find them pieces of, like, they're just fraudulent. Like, you're just lying to yourselves. Why do you need to apologize for something that you consider to be perfect? Like, it's such a, for me, as if, like, it makes me as angry now as it did when I was a Salafi, like when I was a practicing Muslim. Like, you are apologizing for something that is decreed by God. Like, why? Why do you need to justify it? Why do you need to sit here and like make it rational? If it's true, it's true. Like it bothers me that people like and that people will be so angry about it. Like, if you have the truth, you don't need to be angry about it. You don't need to be angry at me. You don't need to be angry at anybody, because in your opinion, that truth will prevail, right? That's what truth does. It's just bizarre to me that you'll call me fake when I'm genuinely talking from my experience, and my experience was valid. And I've heard a lot of people say, and by the way, I've done a bunch of Salafi tests. Like, people have tried testing me. I check out. Okay, I'm not going to sit here and claim to be the most intelligent person on the planet. I'm not. I'm an ignoramus. I'm 24 fucking years old. But I check out because I did practice Islam to a degree that I thought I was doing my best. And then I left because Allah just sucks as a god. Like, I don't think that I need a more in-depth reason for leaving. I shouldn't need one. But it just seems so strange to me that so many of you get so angry. You don't need to be angry about it. If you have the truth, don't be angry about it. I mean, you can. I'm not going to tell you what to do. Like, this isn't assertion. This isn't an order. But I just don't understand it. When I was a Muslim and people would ask me, like, hey, you cover your face. Like, is that mandatory in Islam? No, it's not. I just like doing it. I do it for the extra reward in paradise. And people would ask me, oh, your prophet married a 6-year-old. Like, do you think that's okay? Yeah, that's what Islam teaches. The prophet did it, so it's okay. But you don't think it's wrong? No, the prophet did it. It's okay. That was it, it's truth. So why are you fucking with it? Like, I'm not saying that you're the ones who are so disgusted by the things you find in Islam that you need to find a way to justify it. Like, you're the ones who are doing that. I don't know why you're coming at me and acting as though I'm the one who's solely disgusted at Islam. You guys are equally as disgusted. You're just in denial of the fact that you are, and that's why you're justifying it. But anyways, that was aside from the topic. I just wanted to quickly address that at the end of this video for no particular reason. But that is the end of the video. I hope it answered your question. I will send the person who asked this question, I will send this video to. And I just want to say in closing that I am currently kind of struggling with being independent. I don't like asking for help. I'm really bad at asking for help. And I recently admitted that I carry a lot of delusions. And one of those delusions that I hold is that I feel as though I'm lucky. And in many respects I am. A lot of things have just sort of fallen into place for me. But luck is a delusion. It's just a pattern finding freakazoid thing that we do in our brain. And I can't rely on luck all the time, and I know that. And I'm terrible at asking for help, so I'm gonna ask for help. I have a PayPal and I have a Patreon. If you would like to support me monetarily, it's all in the description below. There is no obligation to, of course. Like, you don't need to. I'm gonna keep putting out content regardless. But I am struggling a little bit over the last month. I have been, because I've been on and off work. Everything's been very up in the air. I've had a lot of mental health issues like resurface and turn on in my brain, and it's partially due to the fact that everything is kind of unstable right now. But I would really appreciate the monetary support. If you can't support me monetarily, please consider subscribing. If you enjoy my content. If you don't, you never have to see my face again. You honestly do not. If you liked the video, leave a thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, dislike the video. If you have your opinions to share, good, bad, amazing, terrible, leave some comments for me. I welcome all comments. Even the worst ones, I welcome them because I believe that everybody should be able to say whatever the fuck they want to say. You know, if you don't like YouTube's interface, which often I don't, please do feel free to leave me, you know, tweet me or message me on Instagram, you know, email me, reach me however you want to. All of my details, everything is always in the description below. And yeah, thank you for joining me in this video. I hope it was beneficial, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.